Welcome to World City's Toronto stage. My name is Jeff Harris, and I'm the National Leader for Sport Business Advisory at Deloitte Canada. And today, I am pleased to be joined for a one-on-one conversation on esports with Chris Overholt, President and CEO of Overactive Media. We are coming to you from Overactive Media's 15,000 square foot esports headquarters and training facility in downtown Toronto. And Chris, thank you for having us. This Red Bull Gaming studio is quite impressive.
It's amazing, isn't it? They've done such a great job. We're so proud of this partnership. And we just hosted a big event in here last night, and today we're doing this, so it's evidence of exactly what we had imagined for the space.
Before we get into our conversation, I do want to give the audience just an understanding of the scale of the industry that we'll be speaking about today. The global video game industry is forecasted to be $183 billion US in 2021. Esports, which is a subset, has experienced explosive growth in recent years. And as a true confluence of sport, data, technology, pop culture, and the next generation of customer, esports offers a unique platform to build community, connection, and commercial opportunity. Today, Chris is going to share with all of us his perspective on the forces that are shaping the future of the esports industry, how esports can inform the future of sport and entertainment, and finally, what the proliferation of gaming culture means for cities. Chris, if you're ready, we'll jump in.
Sure, let's go.
Do it. So for those in our audience who may not be familiar with the esports industry, with Overactive Media, could you just give us a bit of a background on the space, your organization, and your properties and assets?
Sure. So, it's the overnight evolution of an entire global industry that has been 20 years in the making, right? It's the gaming industry, I think largely born out of the Far East, really took shape 20 years ago. And what we've been spending time talking about and developing storyline around now for most of the last several years has been really just the awakening that largely North America and Western Europe has experienced. But this is an industry, as you point out, that on a macro basis is now bigger than the combined industry of the movie and music and entertainment business. And as a subset of that, the esport business is really starting to take shape in many of the same ways that if you went back and looked, are the early signs of development around traditional sport. And in fact, that's the fundamental thesis of Overactive Media, that esports, and particularly these franchise leagues that are closed and demand significant investment to own the IP and the territorial rights on an exclusive basis, that those leagues are going to come to look like and feel like traditional sports, except for a new generation of fans who frankly just think differently about their sports media and entertainment choices. So at Overactive Media, we made early decisions going back to 2018 to invest in the biggest and most important franchise leagues in the world. And we think we're building out a very robust, multi-billion-dollar enterprise here.
Got it. And could you maybe share with the audience, you mentioned some parallels to traditional sport, to some of the properties that you do have in some of these biggest franchise leagues in the world, because you are a global organization.
Yeah, we are. So we have offices here in Toronto, as you mentioned, 15,000 square feet here that we use as our global headquarters and also as our practice facility for our two Toronto-based teams. And then we have operations in Madrid and also in Berlin as well, and are currently looking at other opportunities around the globe. The league investments that we made are predicated on, again, the notion that these leagues in particular are set up in much the same way as traditional sports model. And what I'm referring to is the business model attached to these leagues. So we made early investments in the Overwatch League and in the Call of Duty League, both as on offer from Activision Blizzard. We're investors and franchise holders in the European League of Legends. And we also own a franchise born out of a league that we started with other team-based organizations that, again, has a similar business model called Flashpoint, and we play a game called Counter-Strike in that league. These leagues were, again, predicated on many of the same business principles as the NBA, the NHL, the NFL. And most specifically, they are closed leagues, meaning as franchise holders, you need to make an investment to acquire the franchise position and own the market opportunity. And you do so exclusively in the same way that the Toronto Raptors are the only Toronto NBA franchise. The Toronto Ultra will be the only Call of Duty Toronto franchise. And then in the business model itself, you get the benefit of both top-down and bottom-up growth opportunity. So from a top-down perspective, again, akin to the Maple Leafs or the Raptors, we get to sit inside the enterprise growth of these leagues as they take shape and form. We get to share in the revenues that are driven out of marketing partnerships and out of broadcast rights and licensing deals that are done at the league level. And then we get to share in the growth and those revenues that spring from that. And from a bottom-up perspective, we get to build out our local business opportunity here around our teams, leveraging live events, just like the Raptors and the Leafs, selling tickets to watch our team play, marketing partnership deals, licensing deals, and the like. So the combination of those two things, and that model, in fact, we see it as very similar, if not almost exactly the same, to NBA, NHL, NFL. And then it has, again, the added benefit of being a scarce asset, meaning there are only going to be so many of these leagues and so many of these franchise opportunities. And when you look at the scalability of the audience next to these leagues and this global market, we see incredible asset value already being attributed to these teams that we purchased. And we've seen secondary market transactions for 3 and 4 times the price of what we paid for them. So all those things combined leave us feeling pretty bullish about the investment that we've made in the business we're in.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you about the business that you're in, because you listed there pretty diverse asset list. I mean, even walking around this facility and seeing the content studios, right, and the different assets that you have here as far as to build, engage, and monetize audience. I mean, if I were to ask you what business are you in, what would your answer be?
We're in the 21st century sports media and entertainment business. And you know, when I'm out talking to investors and to the market broadly, I oftentimes will reference Maple Leaf Sports or Madison Square Garden as, you know, what most of those of my generation have understood to be a high expression of that statement. Again, a sports media and entertainment conglomerate. We're building that same kind of strategy and vision out for our business, except for, again, a new generation of fans. Today's generation of fans who candidly spend less time watching, say, 3 hours of NFL football like I did on Sunday, and more time with multiple screens going, perhaps with a Twitch stream going on while they're playing their favorite game, while they're working on their mobile device, staying connected to their friends and community. That industry prompts all kinds of interesting ideas and market opportunities. As you've said off the top, a massive global addressable audience. And more importantly, I suppose, from the commercial aspects of our business, a massively addressable audience in the most targeted demographic in the world, of course, that 18 to 24 coveted audience that frankly is more difficult to reach today than it's ever been. And so, again, in the same ways that perhaps if you were a Maple Leaf fan from a young age as I was, you have an emotional connection to that brand and that team, our audience has an emotional connection to our players and to our leagues. And it's that exact emotional and authentic connection that we leverage into our business in the same way that we've watched the Maple Leaf Sports Organization or the Madison Square Garden over years do the same.
Mm-hmm. And you know, you've drawn a lot of parallels with the thesis for your business to, I'll call it, traditional professional sports. You know, the league model, the revenue share structure, the opportunities for owners and investors to participate in enterprise growth of the league. And that's something that we've heard, you know, early on, I'll say, in the days of esports and the closed franchise leagues. But curious is, given your background, having been an executive at the Canadian Olympic Committee, Miami Dolphins, Toronto Raptors, prior to joining Overactive Media, what can traditional sports leagues and teams learn from the esports space?
Well, look, the space and the experience and the exercise of building community and fandom, I would argue, is totally different today than it was even when I was at the Dolphins. And, you know, that was only a decade or so ago. It's different, not unique to this industry. It's just different because the cohort is different, right? The fans that are 18 to 24 that love esports, that love the platform of Twitch or YouTube or even TikTok, they think differently about how they consume media, the time and energy they're prepared to put in it, the connection that they draw to it, the way they speak to each other about their passions. And as a result, as a sports property, you need to be thinking differently with them. But again, central to our thesis is that we can draw that strong emotional connection. And I'll give you an example. If you're a fan of gaming and streaming and esports broadly, then there's a chance that you spend time, like I would as a sports fan, looking in on your team through sports sites and websites that provide information and updates, right? Those ad tech solutions are, they provide value for sure, but they're a very difficult business for that cohort to hold on to, meaning they're very particular and almost fickle about the way that they look in on sponsors that support those websites. They tend to be, again, ad blockers and cord cutters, and again, are very particular about the way certain brands might interlope on their time and energy, while they're pursuing their passion. Our business model is rather to reach to them in a more authentic way by connecting them again to our players and to our team and our brand, by producing content that they attach themselves to and feel energized by. And because we can do that better and more authentically than just an ad on a website, that gives us a premium position to talk to partners like TD Bank, for example, or Universal Music or Skip the Dishes. It gives us, again, that emotional attachment that lands a bank like TD authentically in that conversation with that audience. So all of that to say, if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs today or the Philadelphia Flyers or the Pittsburgh Penguins, you need to be thinking about a generation of fans that, again, is not what I represented, doesn't connect in the same ways, spends less time actually consuming your core product, takes it in on a more fringe basis and more casually. I made the point to an investor the other day that, my kids are now 27 and 25. They've grown up in the professional sports space, of course, and had access to experience live events and broadcast opportunities their whole lives. But today, they watch their hockey highlights 7 minutes at a time on YouTube, and they spend more of their time, again, on platforms like Twitch and gaming and so on. So there's a change that's already happened that a lot of traditional sports franchises have not managed to pivot around, and we think that that would be a great learning opportunity in some cases.
Yeah, gaming has really become the new social network. I mean, at the risk of dating myself, I'd come home from school, hop on MSN Messenger, talk to my friends there, and now you're seeing the same, but right, it's on Twitch. You see individuals have their Discord chats. Like it really is like central to individuals' identity now.
Yeah, and for businesses, it's a very difficult marketplace to navigate, right? And again, I would say to land authentically in, because this cohort, again, very, very persnickety about, when brands land in the middle of those conversations, in the middle of those engagements, unless you do so authentically, it's a very difficult place to be and potentially alienating for your brand. So we like to think that the work that Tyler and Amy and Allison do on the commercial side of our business, working with brands like TD and Bell and those others that I mentioned, that's a point of difference for us. And again, in a world where this is changing as fast and is as fluid as it is, an expertise that we bring to the market.
And speaking of bringing to the market, there is a topic that no doubt our audience has been waiting to hear about, and one that made quite the headlines when you announced it earlier this year, and that is the new state-of-the-art venue that you're building at the Exhibition Grounds in downtown Toronto. So would appreciate if you could just give us some background on that venue, and what can we as an audience member expect when we walk through those doors in 2025?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. And as I said earlier, our vision for this company is to build out a 21st century sports media and entertainment company. And our vision for the venue is to build a home for that generation of fans that really loves music and entertainment and fashion and esports and gaming, of course. So this is actually a passion project that goes all the way back to the earliest days of the birth of the business back in 2018. You might know that the Kimmels are principal investors in Overactive Media and are developers in their own right, Westdale Properties being their core company. Jeffrey and Mike Kimmel are the third generation of that family's heritage, and so they really took it on themselves to identify some opportunities for us in the city, and more than that, again, an opportunity downtown that we could take hold of. And so I guess it was just about January in 2020 where we started moving in the direction of the Exhibition Place. We saw an opportunity there and started to work on it in earnest in the spring of that year. And then once we could see a firm path to getting it done, we hired Bob Hunter, in fact, from Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Bob and I were colleagues years ago when I was involved with that organization. And of course, Bob has been the executive representative for MLSE on projects like the Raptors practice facility, BMO Field, TFC, all of those opportunities. Bob has been first and foremost front and center on leading from an executive sponsor standpoint. So again, a really big and bold step for us, a relatively small company taking a big step in the direction of competing head to head with the likes of Maple Leaf Sports and other key venues in the marketplace. But it's accretive and additive to the experience of our fans in the city and the country for sure. Again, there's not a 7,200 seat venue in this market, which frankly to us seems strange. This is now the 4th largest market in North America. We're told by our friends at Live Nation it's the 5th global market for music and entertainment. And yet, when you think about it, for now more than 20 years, there's really only been one central venue for the top music and entertainment acts to play in the city. And that venue's conflicted out 100 nights a year with the great performance of our Raptors and Leafs teams. So this has seemed like a market opportunity for us from the beginning. In terms of what our fans and those that would attend the venue can expect to experience and all of that, we're really imagining a very fan-focused and tech-friendly experience, and really, really an experience that it would be unparalleled in this country, and we'd like to think one that we could create, particularly for the music and entertainment side of the business, to be unparalleled. We'd like to think that the combination of work, starting with, importantly, Bell and all the great technology that they could bring to the conversation, leveraging their 5 platform and soon their 5G platform in that environment. Early conversations with the likes of Google and Microsoft and Cisco, and in fact, starting to work in conversation with Deloitte about how we can do all of those things. We'd like to believe that we can create an unparalleled experience and be a lowest net cost producer for the music acts. And so that vision realized would allow us to compete every day of every week for the top entertainment acts that land in the market. And that's exactly the kind of leading position we want to be in.
And we talked about what traditional sport can learn from esports. I mean, probably heavy focus here on the live entertainment with the venue. Will I be asking the question about what can the entertainment industry learn from esports after a couple of years with your venue being live there?
I think so. Like, again, it's we've done only a little bit of this work so far, but you can certainly imagine that John Legend could roll into town and play several nights in our venue, 7,200 seats at a time, but that same experience could be imagined in all kinds of ways, literally around the globe, that there could be a virtual stadium that John's team could produce out of our venue that would reach to, again, the 4 corners of the world, and again, would allow for very unique experiences powered by a 5G environment that enables virtual a backstage access pass, non-fungible tokens that can be purchased around minting those memories that go with attending the event live and at distance. It just goes on and on. So it's a wonderful time to be in that conversation and in that business. And frankly, the biggest challenge we have, I think, is keeping our powder dry for as long as we possibly can, so that when we arrive to opening the doors, the experience is as rich and as modern and forward-thinking as it can be.
So, Chris, we've talked about the venue. You spoke to your team about your teams earlier. You've recently partnered as an organization Overactive Media with the City of Toronto and Destination TO to bring the eSports Travel Summit to Canada for the first time. So I think it's safe to say you really are planting a flag for the City of Toronto in the esports world. And my question for you, we're here at World City on the Toronto stage, is what is your vision for what esports can mean for the city?
I mean, I think all of us who live here and have the opportunity and privilege to work here in Toronto and in the city and in the nation of Canada know what a great city it is. It's world class in every way. And truly one of my great frustrations when I worked for the Olympic Committee is I would travel around the world and meet people every day, every week that would sing our praises, that would oftentimes in their first breath tell me how much they loved our city and thought of it and in those special ways. And I just don't think as a city we've always thought as big and as boldly as we could as the world-class city that we are. So you're quite right. With the venue that we're intending to build, we believe we can put a flag in the ground, not just for the music and entertainment space, but to create an experience that we think would be second to none in the world today from an esports perspective. And when you think about it, there really isn't a region of the world that has put a stake in the ground in that way that could be referred to as a global hub for esports. And I think we can do that. I think with the publisher relationships that we enjoy, the great working relationship that we've already established with Scott Beck and his team at Destination Toronto, the great political support that we enjoy from the mayor's office and from the province, together as partners, I think we can build a really preeminent solution for the world to consider every time there's a major event, major conference, major meeting to be hosted. Toronto should be in the consideration set. And so in those ways, with those partners, I think our venue can be a differentiator.
And last question, and appreciate your time, Chris, and having us here today, is we do have a global audience joining us. And for those who are sitting there and saying, okay, that's great about the city of Toronto, but I'm thinking about my home, kind of the urban center that I live in. How would you articulate to them, why esports is important and why their city could benefit from being an esports hub?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think it's terribly relevant to literally every market in the world. And I mean that in the broadest sense. So, I'm traveling tonight internationally to the Middle East and later in the year to the Far East to engage in conversations where we're lending support to, the origins of strategy around some of the bigger markets in those parts of the world. But, if we think of it again as analogous to traditional sport, and maybe for those who are listening and watching from the United States, for example, I mean, for years and years, I played baseball, Little League baseball, and grew up loving that sport and grew up passionately playing those games during the week and on the weekends. And today, it's no different for those who love gaming or love esports or some of the game titles that we discussed this afternoon. There is a market to be built at all levels, whether it would be community or club programs or college and university competition or at the highest expression of these games, Toronto Ultra, Toronto Defiant, Mad Lions at the highest expression of the professional level. There is an entire value chain that goes with that and a great experience that be created for children and adults of all ages. So it doesn't matter whether you are in Middle America or Western Canada or Toronto. There's an opportunity for all cities and all communities to engage in gaming and esports in the ways that we've been discussing today. And that's as powerful today as it was for Little League baseball or football in those days.
Well, thank you, Chris, for your time. We'll let you go and catch your flight. Really appreciate the conversation today, and again, for hosting us in this very impressive facility. To our audience around the world, we appreciate you joining us in Toronto, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the World City Conference.